This is dralvin.com, the business of wisdom where world leaders and thinkers do come to chat. We want to hear from Dr. Jamie. She has a powerful book entitled Love Never Dies, How to Reconnect and Make Peace with the Deceased. Why are you considered Dr. Love?
Oh, that's a very good question. Well, way back in the 90s, I started a radio show called Ask Dr. Love, and then I invented a game called Love Quest, the game of finding Mr. Right. But actually, this even began before that, because way back in the early 80s, I had a premonition of my bringing relationship advice over the Internet. Well, at the time, it was over computers. The Internet hadn't even been born yet. And then 15 years later, when the Internet was invented, I said, that's how I'm going to bring relationship advice site over the Internet. And I invented and launched AskDrLove.com, the web's first relationship advice site, and that name just stuck, Dr. Love.
Now, is a lot of what you do deals with grief therapy?
Well, actually, I am a specialist in relationship therapy, but since my own husband died of a bee sting, my whole work has transformed and expanded because I discovered relationships don't end in death. And so I developed this new transdimensional grief therapy method that shows people how to reconnect with their deceased loved ones and how to make peace if needed. And both of these things don't exist out there in the Western, grief therapy community.
So tell me about the story that you feature in the book concerning how you met your husband, and tell me about your guys' nativity.
Oh, that's very cool. So when I was a young girl, I had a premonition of the man that I would one day marry. I actually saw him, what he looked like, so it was very unusual, and I just was content to wait until he appeared. And he did appear on the first day of my freshman year at Vassar College. I'd been shut out of all the intro sociology classes, and the secretary said, go ask Jean Pin, he's the chair of the Department of Sociology, see if he can find a seat for you in one of the closed sections. So I walked into his office, and I had this amazing out-of-body experience. I literally felt my soul shooting at high speed through a tunnel to the end of my life. And then I felt my soul shooting back into my body, and I get this message, remember every aspect of this meeting, he's going to be everything to you one day. And then I forgot. But I found out soon after that Jean had been, for most of his life, one of the most famous Jesuit priests in history. He taught at the Vatican. He was a religious pioneer. He founded a movement called Liberation Theology, designed to fight church oppression from within. And he actually fought the Pope and the Catholic Church. They were trying to block the legalization of divorce. He didn't want to see women trapped in marriages where they were being abused. So he fought on the grounds of religious freedom, and he won. He changed the course of Italian history, got the divorce bill passed, and then soon after the Pope granted him the dispensation of his vows. So he left the Jesuit order, the priesthood, came to Vassar, and that's where I met him. So we fell in love. We were crazy for each other. For 27 years, we were just inseparable. And then in the last year of his life, we started having a premonition that he was going to die of an accident. We just didn't know when or where. So we go to Italy. He's stung by the bee. And the next thing I know, I go back to the hotel room, and I'm just hysterical. I'm shaking. I'm trembling. I'm traumatized. And I feel his hand stroke the entire length of my spine. Now, mind you, he had been this religious pioneer. I was raised by two atheists. They taught me not to believe in God or the afterlife, and here I am feeling his hand stroke my spine, and that was just the beginning. He has made his presence known in front of witnesses, astonishing manifestations that have proven to me we don't die. Our relationships don't end in death, and so I realized our entire Western approach to grief, which is grieve, let go, and move on and do it in 6 months, it's wrong. We need to reconnect to our loved ones. Don't say goodbye, say hello. And since I know the Western grief therapy approach also leaves us no way of making peace and resolving issues with people who have passed over, I bring my conflict resolution method to the world of after-death communication, and I show people how to dialogue with loved ones in spirit and how to work their issues out. So for the first time in history now, we have a vehicle for literally making peace with the deceased.
During your relationship, was there a age and perhaps cultural differences?
Everything. That's what was so amazing. We had different backgrounds, religion, age, huge age difference. He obviously was a devout Catholic. I was an atheist. He came from France. I was born in the United States. But we were absolutely perfect for each other. Our souls were perfect, you know?
Now, one of the examples you give in the book is concerning his untimely death and the faxing of the death certificate. Talk about that episode.
Oh, you are such a great interviewer because very few people actually read a book with so much attention to detail, and that is an amazing story. What happened was I had to fax his death certificate to Verizon to take him off of the bill. So early in the day, I had faxed all over the place other documents, but now I have to fax his death certificate. The cover letter goes through without a hitch, but then when I go to send the death certificate, it doesn't fax. I try the obituary. Again, cover letter goes through without a hitch, but the obit won't go. So the next day, I take the documents to my lawyer's office, and I don't tell them why. I just say, would you mind faxing these documents for me? After about 20 minutes, the secretaries come out of the back office. They're crying. They say to me, Janie, we tried 20 times, 30 times. Every time the cover letter goes, but neither the obit or the death certificate would fax. And they said, he's telling you he's not gone. And this was just one of the many times that he said, here I am. And their spirits come through very easily through electronic devices because once they're freed from the physical vessel, now they're pure energy. And I have so many stories that I tell in Love Never Dies, just proving again and again because he's really gone over the top because he wants people to know we don't die. So he's made his presence known in front of witnesses, like the fax story. I have many others. If we have a minute, I can tell you another.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. Well, this one is actually very, very wild. The first night I came back from Italy, and I'm lying in bed crying, and I'm trembling, I'm alone in our bed, and all of a sudden I hear Jean quoting a passage to me. I don't know what he's saying. I mean, I hear the words, but I don't know what the passage is. The next day I go to his priest. I say, Jean's been speaking to me. The priest raises his eyebrow like, yeah, right. But then I tell him what Jean said. The priest goes white. He crosses himself, and he says, Dear Lord, Jamie, at first I didn't believe that Jean was speaking to you, but I do now. You are quoting an obscure biblical passage from the Communion of Saints. Like I would know? I was raised an atheist. I didn't know. So it took me a year to understand why Jean had chosen to quote that and only that biblical passage to me. Well, he was a religious pioneer in life. He continues to be in the afterlife. He was giving me the biblical foundation for my new grief therapy method. He was telling me, and this is what the Communion of Saints means, our loved ones in spirit are one with God and the saints. And since we're supposed to stay in communion and communication with God and the saints, this means we're supposed to stay in communication and communion with our loved ones in spirit because they're one with God and the saints. So he's telling us what we've been told about the afterlife is dead wrong. We are not meant to live in an emotional wasteland, disconnected from those we love, waiting till we die and enter heaven to reconnect with them. He's saying heaven is all around us. Heaven is here and now. Heaven is a state, not a place. And he also said death is an illusion. There's a very thin veil between the realm where you are and the realm where I am. I'm standing right here. So this combined with all the manifestations that he's right here. I mean, the next morning, I open my back door. He says to me, open the door, I want to show you something. So I open the door, and what do I see? There's a chipmunk sitting on the step. And the chipmunk, unlike normal chipmunks that would run away, he looks like he's frozen in a trance. I started to realize, wow, something was happening to this chipmunk. The next thing I know, he's ripping at his face, mimicking the way Jean was ripping at the oxygen mask when he couldn't get air to come in. And the chipmunk is doing this over and over and over again. And I'm just crying, watching this chipmunk for 20 minutes. And then all of a sudden, I see the chipmunk visibly cough out something from his lungs. I see a hunk of mucus. and he's in peace. And I knew my husband was coming through this little animal to tell me I'm okay. He literally manifested this mucus. I don't know how. It's a mystery. When you don't get it and it's a mystery, you're dealing with spirit. So again and again, he's let it be known. I'm here. We don't die. So we're not meant to say goodbye. We're meant to say hello to our loved ones, and that's what Love Never Dies shows you how to do. I show you step by step how you can reconnect, how you can create a state of receptivity so that your whole being is open to spirit, because we're born with these abilities. We just never cultivated them. So I show you how to become more receptive. Then I show you how to recognize all the signs, because a lot of people will say to me, oh, my loved ones aren't speaking to me. They're not giving me signs. And then I start telling them, these are the signs. And they say, oh, this happened and that happened and this. And I'm doing a radio show also on Hay House, Love Never Dies, and people call crying, oh, my gosh, hearing your stories, we realize it's happening to us. Just knowing that it's happening begins the process of reconnection. And then I show you how to use my dialoguing with the departed technique. This is the first vehicle in history that allows you to talk back and forth with loved ones. So you reconnect, you can get guidance, and you can work issues out. Dialoguing back and forth, you write down what you hear them say, you say back an answer, you keep writing back and forth, or you use a tape, and you do this until you achieve a meeting of the minds. So it's really amazing, the healing and the peace that's resulting from my method. I'm just so happy. And that's it.
The name of the powerful book is entitled Love Never Dies, How to Reconnect and Make Peace with the Deceased. This particular chat will be featured at dralvin.com, dralvin.com on Facebook. Also, Dr. Jamie, you can join me on Twitter at Dr. Alvin Jones. That's where we discover wisdom one brilliant mind at a time. Tell me how to get a copy of this book and to be a part of your world.
That's a really good question. So the easiest thing is come to askdrlove.com, askdrlove.com. On the upper right-hand corner, there's my newsletter. Sign up for my Love Revolution. You'll get the first preface and introduction if you'd like a sample. If you buy the book now, because the book has just been released, come back to askdrlove.com, and we have a little love sweepstakes. It's a gift for people who are buying right now. And just come to the site, askdrlove.com. You'll see, how to get in touch with me, how you can reach out to me. All my radio announcements are there, and that's the best way.
Well, thank you so very much for sharing your story and your research and scholarship, and may this be your best day ever.
You are wonderful. Thank you for having me.